It's January 15, 1947. A mother, simply out for a walk with her child in a quiet Los Angeles neighborhood, stumbles upon something so horrific it defies belief. What she first thinks is a mannequin, eerily posed on the sidewalk, turns out to be a young woman. Her body sliced in half at the waist. There is no blood at the scene, only the gruesome remains of a 22-year-old woman who had been brutally murdered elsewhere and left on display like a twisted, macabre sculpture. This was no film noir, no Hollywood thriller. This was real life, and the young woman in question would become one of the most infamous figures in American crime history, Elizabeth Short, forever known as the Black Dahlia. Her tragic death, violent, public, and senseless, has haunted investigators, journalists, and true crime enthusiasts for decades. What happened to Elizabeth Short? Who could commit such a brutal act, and why did it remain unsolved, despite the tireless efforts of the FBI, local police, and the entire city of Los Angeles? The Black Dahlia murder is one of the most famous cold cases in the world, and over the years the name Black Dahlia has become synonymous with mystery, terror, and a chilling sense of unresolved darkness. But behind the blood-soaked headlines and the sensationalized media coverage lies a much deeper question. What really happened to Elizabeth Short, and why has her killer never been found? Today, the story of the Black Dahlia isn't just a relic of the past, it's a living enigma, one that continues to captivate our collective imagination. As we revisit this case, we uncover a story that is far more complicated than what the headlines portrayed. Was Elizabeth Short just another victim of Hollywood's darkest secrets, or was there something much more sinister at play? Stick with us as we dig into the chilling details of this case and ask the question that still haunts many to this day: who killed the Black Dahlia, and why? By the time Elizabeth Short's body was discovered, she had already become a part of the tragic landscape of Los Angeles, the city of dreams and dark secrets. Short had moved to Los Angeles, hopeful and eager to become an actress. She was young, beautiful, and had the world at her feet. Or so it seemed. But dreams of stardom soon faded into despair, as Short struggled to find her place in a city notorious for devouring the hopes of young women. Elizabeth, a waitress and aspiring actress, never quite made it to the big screen. She was a figure known in the city but not widely recognized, a victim of the Hollywood system that preyed on the vulnerable. But she wasn't just a nameless face in the crowd. She was a person, a daughter, a woman with ambitions, with dreams, and a future that was tragically cut short. When her body was discovered, it was clear that this wasn't just another random act of violence. The way her body was mutilated, cleanly sliced in half with surgical precision, suggested something much more deliberate. Something far more disturbing. The nature of the crime seemed almost too precise to be the work of just another serial killer. Was it possible that Elizabeth Short's death was a message, a symbol, or was she the victim of someone who had been hiding in plain sight, with the knowledge and skill to carry out such a heinous act? Short's murder became a mystery that gripped the nation. The case was officially investigated by the LA Police Department, but soon the FBI was called in to help. They quickly identified Elizabeth Short as the victim, thanks to her fingerprints, which were already in the Bureau's records. But while her identity was confirmed almost immediately, the search for her killer would prove far more elusive. In an effort to find answers, the FBI ran multiple background checks, interviewed potential witnesses, and searched for any leads that could explain the brutality of the crime. But with each passing day, more questions emerged. Why was she killed in such a grotesque manner? Was her murder tied to a larger conspiracy, or was it simply the result of one twisted individual? The investigation into the Black Dahlia murder became a tangled web of false leads, dead ends, and questions that led nowhere. But perhaps the most intriguing part of this mystery lay in the details. The nature of Elizabeth's murder, clean, surgical, almost artistic, suggested a killer with deep knowledge of the human body. Medical professionals, such as students at local medical schools, were questioned, but no concrete connections could be made. Yet it wasn't just the brutality of the murder that left the authorities baffled. An anonymous letter sent to the press claimed to have details about the crime, including knowledge of facts that were not made public. It was a tantalizing lead, a potential breakthrough. But when the FBI tested the fingerprints on the letter, they found no matches in their database, raising more questions about whether the killer was truly as elusive as they appeared. This anonymous letter was just one of many puzzling pieces to the Black Dahlia case. The FBI followed leads, spoke with numerous people who claimed to know something about Elizabeth Short's life or her final days. Yet despite all of this, the case seemed to slip further from their grasp. No suspect ever emerged with enough evidence to charge them, and no one was ever arrested for the crime. So, what's the truth? Was Elizabeth Short a victim of circumstance, a young woman caught in a web of Hollywood's dark underbelly? Or was she murdered by someone with more sinister intentions, someone who knew exactly how to execute such a gruesome, disturbing crime? And what about the anonymous letter? Did it contain a clue to the identity of the killer, or was it just another red herring? The clock is ticking, and with every passing year, the likelihood of finding her killer fades. But despite the growing distance in time, the Black Dahlia case has never lost its hold on the public imagination. What happened that day in 1947? Who killed Elizabeth Short? Was the killer someone she knew, someone close to her? Or was this crime part of a much bigger conspiracy that the public still knows nothing about? Stay with us as we continue to unravel the haunting details of the Black Dahlia case. What happened to Elizabeth Short? Could the truth finally be uncovered? Or will the killer remain hidden in the shadows forever? Stick with us for more. The Black Dahlia murder was not just another case. It was a crime that became a symbol of the darkest aspects of post-war America. Los Angeles in the late 1940s was a city of ambition, excess, and secrets. The allure of Hollywood had drawn thousands of hopeful young women, all desperate to make their mark in the entertainment world. Yet beneath the shiny surface of glamour, there was a seedy underbelly, a world where corruption, organized crime, and dangerous figures lurked in the shadows. Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old woman from Massachusetts, was one of many who had come to Hollywood with dreams of stardom. She had lived a difficult life, moving between various cities and facing the harsh realities of being an aspiring actress. She didn't have the success she had hoped for, but she was a part of the city's fabric, a familiar face in the coffee shops, bars, and cheap apartments. But what should have been the beginning of her journey was tragically the end. On January 15, 1947, Elizabeth Short's name would be forever immortalized, not for any success she had in Hollywood, but for the horrific and brutal murder that took her life. That morning, a mother walking with her child in the Leimert Park area of Los Angeles discovered the body. At first glance, she thought she had stumbled upon a mannequin posed eerily in the middle of a vacant lot. But the gruesome reality quickly set in as the woman realized what she was looking at. A young woman's body, gruesomely sliced in half at the waist, drained of blood, and posed deliberately in an unsettling position. There was no blood at the scene, suggesting the murder had taken place elsewhere, and the killer had strategically placed the body to maximize the shock factor. This wasn't just another random act of violence. It was something much darker. The mutilation, the careful positioning of the body, the total lack of blood, and the way it all seemed so deliberately theatrical, spoke to a methodical, calculated killer. The crime was sensationalized immediately by the press, and Elizabeth Short would soon be dubbed the Black Dahlia by the media, a name that would come to be synonymous with unsolved murder, mystery, and Hollywood's darkest side. As the investigation unfolded, the FBI was quickly brought in to assist the LA's police department. They had the resources, the manpower, and the expertise needed to delve into the mystery. The identification of the victim came quickly. Elizabeth Short had been in the FBI's records before. Her fingerprints were on file due to a prior encounter with the law. But what the FBI didn't know at the time was that this case would evolve into one of the most confounding and controversial unsolved mysteries in American criminal history. From the very beginning, the Black Dahlia case became a tangled web of confusion, misdirection, and misinterpretation. The murder was like a bad movie plot, so strange, so impossible that it seemed unreal. But the more the investigation unfolded, the more unsettling it became. The FBI's involvement, while crucial, didn't yield quick results. They gathered Elizabeth Short's fingerprints and ran records checks across the country. They spoke with people who knew her, searching for any connections that might provide a clue. Yet every lead seemed to take them further away from the truth. One of the earliest theories was that the killer had some sort of medical or anatomical knowledge. The precision with which Elizabeth Short's body had been mutilated, sliced cleanly and without any visible signs of struggle, suggested that whoever committed this crime had the skill of someone who understood human anatomy. The FBI focused some of their investigation on medical professionals and students from local medical schools, but the search turned up nothing conclusive. Was the killer a doctor, a student, or someone with specialized training? Or was it possible that the murderer had no professional training but simply an extraordinary knowledge of anatomy and dissection? Then came another crucial piece of the puzzle: a letter. An anonymous note was sent to the press which contained startlingly specific details about the crime that hadn't been made public. It seemed to confirm suspicions that the killer had been on the inside of the investigation, perhaps even mocking the authorities. The letter's contents were deeply unsettling, and its author seemed to revel in the attention. However, when the FBI ran fingerprints from the letter through their records, they found nothing. The search for the identity of the sender only deepened the mystery. Was this letter from the killer, or was it just a cruel hoax? The FBI's profile of the killer also suggested something else: that the murder was personal. This wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a crime that seemed to carry meaning, perhaps even symbolism. Some theorists believed that Elizabeth Short was a victim of someone trying to send a message, using her death as a form of twisted art. The way her body was posed, the precision of the dissection, and the lack of blood all pointed to a calculated and deliberate crime. But what was the message? Was it directed at the police? Was it meant to expose something hidden within the glamour and corruption of Hollywood? Or was it something much more personal to the killer, a crime born of obsession or retribution? With the absence of any clear leads, the case became a media spectacle, and public speculation reached new heights. The press pored over every detail, inventing new stories and theories, from links to Hollywood's elite to conspiracy theories about the involvement of organized crime. Each headline seemed to make the case more sensational, but it also clouded the investigation further. Was the press covering the truth, or were they just adding fuel to the fire of a media frenzy? The FBI's ability to manage the case was further hampered by the widespread public interest, as it became clear that this wasn't just a murder. This was an event that was capturing the imagination of an entire nation. The Black Dahlia murder did not exist in a vacuum. It was a crime set against the backdrop of post-World War II America, a nation recovering from the war but still grappling with the shadows of its own history. Los Angeles, in particular, was a city of contradictions. On the surface, it was a land of opportunity, fame, and fortune. But beneath that, it was also a place where crime, corruption, and darkness thrived. It was a place where the glitz and glamour of Hollywood met the grim realities of the underworld. In the late 1940s, organized crime was on the rise, and Los Angeles was no stranger to criminal syndicates. Many believed that the Black Dahlia case was connected to this underworld, perhaps as part of a larger pattern of corruption and criminality that had become embedded within the fabric of the city. Was Elizabeth Short another victim of this corruption? Or was she targeted for reasons no one had yet uncovered? The rise of media sensationalism also played a pivotal role in shaping the narrative of this crime. The Black Dahlia murder wasn't just a tragedy, it was a story that sold newspapers. The press was hungry for sensational stories, and they pored over every detail of Elizabeth Short's life and death. The media capitalized on the mystery surrounding her murder, further feeding public fascination with the case. But with every new headline, the truth seemed to slip further out of reach. The more the case developed, the more questions arose. What was the real motive behind the murder? Was Elizabeth Short just another Hollywood hopeful who became a tragic casualty of a dark and corrupt world? Or was there something more to her death that had yet to be uncovered? As investigators continued to search for answers, the mystery surrounding the Black Dahlia only grew deeper. The FBI had its theories, but the case had turned into a web of intrigue, secrets, and suspicions that seemed impossible to unravel. The more time passed, the less likely it seemed that the case would ever be solved. The theories continued to multiply, but solid evidence remained elusive. Was the killer still out there, hiding in plain sight, or had the passage of time buried the truth forever? The search for answers continued, but with each passing year, the case became colder, the questions deeper, and the truth more distant. As the investigation trudged on, the Black Dahlia case remained an open wound in the heart of Los Angeles. Was Elizabeth Short's murder part of a larger conspiracy, or was it simply a crime carried out by a twisted mind? The press, the public, and law enforcement all seemed to be at odds, each with their own theories, but the truth remained hidden in the shadows. Stay with us as we dive into the next chapter of this chilling case. What new revelations will emerge? And will the killer ever be brought to justice? Or will this case remain unsolved forever? After years of investigation, the FBI and local law enforcement were no closer to solving the Black Dahlia case. The letter from the alleged killer, the mysterious fingerprints, and the bizarre circumstances surrounding the murder only deepened the mystery. Were there connections to organized crime? Was there a link between Hollywood and the grisly murder, or was the truth more disturbing than anyone was prepared to face? As we prepare to close the chapter on this haunting case, one question remains. Can the Black Dahlia's killer ever be brought to justice? What secrets lie buried in the long-forgotten corners of this tragedy? The truth behind Elizabeth Short's murder continues to elude us, but the search for answers is far from over. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into this chilling story and explore what might finally bring this case to a resolution, or if the killer will forever remain a shadow in the history of American crime. By the time the investigation had passed through the hands of multiple agencies, including the FBI, it seemed as though the case had become an impossible puzzle, one that no one, no matter how skilled, could solve. Every lead turned cold, and every theory seemed plausible yet entirely unsubstantiated. What made the Black Dahlia case so disturbing, beyond its grisly details, was the feeling that the killer could be anyone. He could be a part of Hollywood's elite, a shadowy figure from the underworld, or just a random individual with deep psychological scars. The key to solving the case remained tantalizingly out of reach. What added fuel to the mystery was the letter sent to the press, an anonymous communication that taunted the authorities with its chilling contents. The sender knew details about Elizabeth Short's body that had not been made public, and the FBI believed it might be a crucial clue. Yet, despite extensive efforts to trace the fingerprints and the handwriting on the letter, the authorities found no matches. The letter was a dead end, but it also represented the very essence of the case, a haunting reminder that, despite all the technology, the clues in this case seemed to slip through their fingers like sand. There were numerous theories that captured the public's imagination, each one more speculative than the last. Was the killer part of an organized crime syndicate? Los Angeles had long been a hotbed for criminal activity, and the city's proximity to Hollywood made it ripe for connections between the entertainment industry and criminal elements. The investigation into possible ties between Elizabeth Short's death and the underworld persisted, but no solid evidence emerged to suggest a connection. The theories swirled, but the truth seemed elusive. Meanwhile, the most unsettling aspect of the investigation remained the brutal nature of the murder. The precision of the dissection, the clean cuts, and the lack of blood at the crime scene suggested someone with specialized knowledge, someone who could carry out such a violent act with cold detachment. Early investigations speculated that the killer could be a doctor, or at the very least, someone with a keen understanding of anatomy. Yet, despite casting a wide net over medical professionals and students, no direct links to the murder surfaced. The killer, it seemed, was a ghost, someone hiding in plain sight, watching as the FBI and law enforcement floundered in their search for answers. As years passed, the Black Dahlia case became a media sensation, a story that had all the elements of a true crime thriller. A beautiful victim, a gruesome murder, a missing killer, and the shadows of Hollywood looming large over the investigation. The press was relentless, feeding public fascination with each new angle, each new theory. Elizabeth Short's life, her hopes for stardom, and her tragic death became fodder for tabloids and news outlets, sensationalizing the very elements that made the case unsolvable. But the more the press delved into the case, the more it clouded the investigation. Public opinion became divided. Some believed the killer was a professional, a figure from Hollywood's darkest circles. Others thought the murder was the act of a lone madman, driven by a twisted sense of artistry or revenge. There was no shortage of suspects, but no evidence that could bring them to justice. In 1949, the case was officially closed by the LAPD, though the investigation continued to be a point of obsession for many, particularly the media and amateur sleuths who were captivated by the mystery. Theories about the Black Dahlia murder became almost as legendary as the case itself. Several potential suspects emerged, but without concrete evidence, none could be conclusively linked to the crime. The killer was still out there, or perhaps he was long gone. As the years turned into decades, the case became part of the folklore surrounding Los Angeles, an open wound that never seemed to heal. Yet the shadow of the Black Dahlia never faded. In 2003, the Los Angeles Police Department re-examined the case, reopening investigations based on new forensic technologies, but again, no breakthrough was made. With each new investigation, the mystery only deepened, becoming a more elusive specter. But as time went on, new theories emerged, and a new generation of investigators and true crime enthusiasts took up the mantle of solving the case. Some believed that the killer had to be someone Elizabeth Short knew, someone she trusted, someone who had access to her in the months leading up to her death. Others suggested the possibility of a serial killer who had taken a particular interest in Elizabeth Short, using her death as a way of creating a macabre statement. Despite the advancements in forensic science, DNA testing and forensic profiling, the Black Dahlia case remained unsolved. Some say that the truth will never be known, that the killer will forever be a shadow lurking in the darkest corners of history. Still, the fascination with Elizabeth Short's murder endures, with books, documentaries, and articles continuing to explore the theories, the suspects, and the possible motivations behind the crime. But what of the killer? Did they ever slip up? Was there a moment when they revealed themselves, or were they always one step ahead? Could the answers lie in a tiny piece of evidence, a hidden letter, a secret confession, a forgotten detail? Or is the Black Dahlia murder simply one of those rare cases where the truth will forever remain a mystery? Thank you for watching Inside the FBI, tackling America's most notorious cases. What do you think happened to the Black Dahlia's killer? Is the truth buried forever in the shadows, or will the case one day be solved? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more in-depth analysis of the true crime stories that continue to shape our world.